Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Go get him, kid.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
F. You're going to ask me. So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me. And my natural response could be to get offended.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making. It is the 30-something movie podcast. Very, very quick spoiler alert. We spoil freely here, so be warned. Tonight we are talking about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves from 1991. One of the two movies that I blame, even though I still love them, one of the two movies that I blame for The Rocketeer not doing as well as it should have done. It's this one and T2. It's all their fault. Very, very quickly before I introduce the merry men that are here with me tonight. We are part of the Scene Stealers Podcast Network, and this episode is sponsored by Scene Stealers International Convention Agent. They've got a top-class roster of movie and TV stars ready to be booked now for your Comic-Con or event, and they're adding more people all the time, so if you want to go over to their website, www.scenestealersglobal.com, you can see all the different people there that they've got lined up. If you're running some kind of an event and you want some celebrities to show up and do some autographs and things like that, then go check them out. Then you can head over to our website, 30podcast.com. You can rate the show. You can leave a voicemail. You can become a co-executive producer via Patreon, where we've got all kinds of extra episodes for you there, extra content. And I believe we've also got the voting page is up now for 1992 movies. So if you want to get in on helping us decide what we're going to look at next year, then you should be able to go there as well. I think it's 30podcast.com/vote if you want to just go straight to that page and take a look at the stuff we've got there. So I have with me tonight my band of merry men. Dennis, how's it going?
Hey, how you guys doing? Good. Glad to be here.
Dennis is pulling back the curtain just a little bit on the production value of the show. Dennis is multitasking. He will be. Are you painting?
I am.
You're painting while podcasting. Okay.
Yes.
So either
rehabbing a house and trying to finish the ceiling and one wall tonight, and I'm good.
Okay.
Or the bedroom walls. I'm good.
So since nobody can really truly multitask, which one is going to suffer? Are you going to mess up the painting or?
I think I'm going to focus on the painting. I think the podcast is going to suffer today. Although who knows? If Pat says something that gets me started, you never know.
That's true.
Go Cubs, go! Go Cubs, go!
That'll do it.
Watch this
No, actually it won't, because right now,
but
if I look at the standings, I don't even need to reply.
What was that?
Standings. I said actually that won't even get me going, because right now, if I look at the standings, I don't even need to reply to that. It's kind of
really
funny that you would bring that up. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Cubs
really,
are in third or fourth place, and with an under 500 record, and the Sox are about 9 up, I think, in first place.
Wow!
One of the best records in baseball. So
that's so exciting.
I was rooting for the Cubs at the beginning. I wanted them to both.
Here we go.
No, I seriously was.
I know.
They were in first place.
I don't even watch baseball. I just.
But they both the White Sox and Cubs were in first place for a good couple weeks, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, hey, world, this could be the year where it's stranger things have happened. And
well, do they still have Cartman or whatever his name is pitching for him? Because I know that was
Cartman. Okay. Cartman, yeah, from South Park. Yep.
I'm trying to make the best of a bad situation. I don't need to hear crap from a bunch of hippie freaks living in denial. Screw you guys. I'm going home.
That's okay. I know if I want to start an argument between the two of you, I just need to say something like, Howard the Duck and Bruce Lee get into a fight, and we'll just go from there.
There you go. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Well, the other voice you're hearing there is Pat. Pat, how you doing?
Hey, doing well, John. Doing well. Speaking of sports, it was exciting times. I actually was catching up on a little bit of the reading with some of our marathon runners for the Olympic marathons, and it's kind of it's exciting. Just kind of, you know, because there's some that are familiar faces that I've read about for a while, and then some are like new up and coming runners, and so that's always exciting, and you know, seeing that whole thing happen. And I know it's I guess, you know, the Olympics are going to go ahead. I don't know exactly when is this one going to be coming out around Olympic time or a little bit after?
Let's see. This episode will be coming out. It's a good question. This one comes out on about the 21st. So yeah, right, a couple days before the Olympics starts.
Yeah. So I just hope, you know, I know that like the world right now, just trying to deal with the pandemic and just move ahead. So hopefully everything happens safely and all that kind of stuff. But that's always exciting.
And the one thing I read is because of some of the stuff they've got spiking over there, they're not going to have any spectators.
Right.
Which
right.
I imagine has got to affect the athletes not to have the spectators there.
Yeah, I would imagine, you know, like you know, that's always interesting to do. And I wonder, like with the marathon, are they going to block off? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know like in some of those events, you know, they can keep them out of whatever the Olympic Village is. So yeah, that would be very interesting, you know,
because they've held a number of, you know, like I think one of the baseball, all those did it. They try to do sound effects and bring it in. So they'll probably try to give a little feel for like a stadium. My guesses would be, because yeah, when it is eerily quiet and there's a competition, yeah, a lot of those people, a lot of athletes will struggle because a lot of them who thrive on the adrenaline and the crowd, which many people do, you get there and it's just a different level. You're gonna feel like you're training, like you're like a lot of the boxers I knew said that it felt like they were sparring.
Yeah,
really clear. You know, you're just in there. You hear nothing. It's like you're in the gym sparring. So it's kind of like hard to get up for that. You have to really kind of dig to find that the push that the audience will often give you. You know, when you hear them either chanting for you or booing against you, you feed off that. And there's not going to be that element for them. It's very sterile, very clean. So, that throws a lot of people off.
Yeah, and it's like I know with like the NFL and stuff, they put the crowd noises through the broadcast, but I think they were playing for a quiet stadium.
Yeah.
I remember that's always interesting, just because, you know, quarterbacks doing the hard count, changing up the play, you know, all that, you know, in certain stadiums. And I, in a way, almost wish they'd give you the broadcast with like, you know, let's just do the next couple of plays without, you know, just to kind of hear what. But yeah, I always find that aspect of it, you know, interesting. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
Now for some people, I think you talked to Jason about this, and it was like Yu Darvish for the Cubs actually had a really good year where during the pandemic one, and when he was with them last year, and it was like no one in the stands, and that's a guy who normally struggled in big games. So World Series, packed crowd, crazy time, you know, like he would actually kind of choke, and he was a better pitcher than he was in those games. He would kind of literally choke. So for him, he had a really good season, probably because there was no one in the stands.
Yeah.
So some people, it definitely would throw off the competition, I think, and people who can channel that and don't need the crowd for the adrenaline are going to have an advantage, or like people who maybe choke will have more of an advantage because they can stay within themselves, and you know, you take that element out for a lot of people. So maybe I'm saying, maybe this is kind of an obvious statement, but I always admire the not a factor people. Like, that's not a factor, you know, like the people, like we'll quote Hoosiers here, spoilers for Hoosiers. But you know, that famous scene where he goes out and measures, you know, doesn't matter. Or the same dimensions as the stadium back in Indiana. Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't matter whether, you know, it doesn't matter. The only difference is in your mind. Or like bands that'll go and play, and it's like, it doesn't matter if there's 20 people in the audience or 20 million people in the audience. We'll just do this. Like, not a factor, you know. That's the kind of stuff that impressed me. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
No, I was just going to say, you know what is a factor in tonight's podcast?
What's a factor?
The fact that I am so glad we are not a video podcast.
Yeah?
Because while Dennis is painting, he's got his phone on the floor, and we're getting like an up shorts shot.
It's impressive, man. Jeez.
Nope.
Oh.
That's not a paint roller you're seeing. Anyway.
Uh-huh.
Okay, time index.
Time index for editing. So Robin Hood's best friend in this movie's name is Little Dennis. Is that?
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. I'm jeez. Oh man.
What Dennis forgets is, even though this is not a video podcast, I am recording this whole thing.
You know,
You
John,
play that when I retire in
you know,
3 weeks.
they
3 weeks.
3 weeks. How about the end of the week? How about 3 days?
I still got to paint. Still got to finish some other things. Change.
I'll come over. I'll be. Hey man, I'll be a lot freer in 3 days. I'll come over and help you.
I'm gonna share that GIF
I'm
from.
pretty free right now.
I'm gonna share that GIF from Total Recall. It's Dennis. When are you gonna be retiring? 2 weeks.
Yeah, there it is. You know, John, we should. I'm thinking like we should have our own. You know, our one of our favorite podcasts that we like to listen to, the Greatest Gen podcast.
Yeah.
You know, they have that where they have that game and they roll the dice, and then if they land on a certain square, they do the podcast episode in a certain way.
I was thinking that something like that could be fun. Like, I don't want to copy somebody else, but it could be kind of fun.
It would be. I mean, well, those guys are just awesome at what they do. And please, anybody out there that's like a Star Trek fan or even Star Trek adjacent, you know, go check them out. Please. Anyways, they are awesome. And but they have that. So I'm thinking like we could do like a version of that.
If you're a Star Trek fan, or you're just Bajoran curious.
Yeah, well, you know, but like we could have an episode where we're all doing something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we can have an episode where we're all playing video games, or we're all painting the house, or we're all doing the dishes.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've pretty much already done this. So I got let's do the episode while doing the dishes. Do the episode while painting the house.
Oh man, that'd be funny.
I was driving.
You've done driving before.
Driving, got my kids.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, there's options. There's options out there to spice up the show.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just kind of curious what it would sound like if we tried to do a Mornhammered.
Yeah, I don't know that we could maintain family friendly with that one.
Right. It's a possibility. I don't think we can call it the game of buttholes, though.
Yeah, that would be just a ripoff. But seriously,
that's gonna be a little trademarked. But
any Star Trek fans, and as long as you don't mind, because you know it obviously is not. They are not like young kid friendly.
Oh yeah, no.
But what a great show that is. So.
Well, the movie that we've got for ourselves this evening, or whenever you're listening, is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And I will say, Pat, I was texting a little bit earlier with one of our buddies, Jason Colvin, from the Surely Can't Be Serious podcast, and co-host of the podcast Full of Kryptonite. I was texting with him earlier, and I mentioned that we were doing Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and I already had a bit that I was going to do where I was going to kind of make fun of you for never being willing to do accents on this show. Like every time I try to get you to do an accent. And I already had this. I was already going to bring it up. I was going to bring up the line from Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah.
About how, unlike other Robin Hoods, I actually can speak with an English accent.
Yes.
And
yes.
Jason texted me. He's like, "Hey, by the way, you should reference that line from Robin Hood Men in Tights." And I was like, "Jason, I'm already one step ahead of you, buddy. I've already got it all queued up and everything. So I have it right here. So Pat, this is for you."
Why should the people listen to you?
Because, unlike some other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
Oh.
Outstanding. That is outstanding. Go back. I mean, I'll do it. I'll do an accent. Go back. It's recorded. Hunt for Red October. It's like you can hear crickets.
This is your one example.
That is my one example. It's just so bad. It is so awful.
It was a one and done. Never again.
Yeah. Well, hey, look. I mean, before we started recording the show, you guys said my impersonation of a certain director was sort of right on, and I mean, you know.
Yeah,
so maybe that's
wasn't bad.
Maybe it's just impersonations. I just have to take that next step.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, tonight we're going to send a special shout out to Bo and to Jeff. I know Jeff wanted to be here with us tonight, but he and his family are currently, I think they were earlier today, dashing through the Denver airport a la Home Alone. And
it almost sounds like a Trains, Planes, Automobiles type situation.
A little bit. Well, it kind of sounded like the day they were going to have. I picture Jeff getting to the end of it, and I picture the interaction at the rental car counter.
Yeah. Or I was thinking of Ben Stiller trying to get home from Meet the Parents.
Yes.
You know, bomb, 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 bomb. You know, and he gets in. Yeah. You know. Well, safe travels. I hope it all. You know what I'm saying.
So we miss you guys, but we'll be seeing you soon. And I know Jeff was really excited to get on with us and talk about Hook, which we got coming up next week. So
coming up.
I watched that one with the kids the other day. They had a lot of fun with that one. All right. Let's jump on into the movie here. So this one is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It came out on the 14th of June, 1991, rated PG-13 with a runtime of 2 hours and 23 minutes. Directed by Kevin Reynolds, who also did The Count of Monte Cristo and Waterworld. What's that? Did you say something, Dennis?
No, that was my son walking in.
Okay. All right.
I'm muting.
Okay, all right. See, he already said, the podcast would suffer because of the painting. And I was going to make a crack about how the only people who are really going to suffer are the listeners. Week in and week out, having to listen to us talk about movies.
Yeah, some of them.
That's okay. We do.
But I've only got happy things to say about the movie tonight, so hopefully everybody's good with that. And if you're not good with that, whatever.
Whatever. Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's a Star Trek podcast somewhere for you. Kevin Reynolds is the director. He did Count of Monte Cristo, one of my other favorite movies. And then Waterworld, not one of my other favorite movies. Producers on this one were Penn Densham, Kevin Costner, Richard Barton Lewis, and John Watson. Densham also produced Moll Flanders and Harriet. Costner also produced The Bodyguard and Open Range. Lewis produced Backdraft and The Space Between Us. And Watson also produced Backdraft and Tank Girl. Penn Densham also did the story and screenplay, and then also did that for Moll Flanders and Larger Than Life. John Watson also did the screenplay, as well as producing, and John Watson also wrote screenplay for A Gnome Named Norm. Cinematography was done by Douglas Milsom, who did Full Metal Jacket and Highlander Endgame. Music was done by Michael Kamen, who died in 2003. He also did music for the X-Men movie and Event Horizon. Budget on this one was $48 million. Box office was $390.5 million, so it made some coin. Flick Metrics gives it a 64%, and CinemaScore gives it an A. Starring Kevin Costner as Robin of Locksley. He was in Field of Dreams and Bull Durham. Morgan Freeman was Azeem. He was in The Shawshank Redemption and Seven. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio was Maid Marian. She was in The Abyss and The Perfect Storm. Christian Slater was Will Scarlet. He was in The Name of the Rose and Heathers. Alan Rickman, who died in 2016, was the Sheriff of Nottingham. He was in Die Hard and the Harry Potter movies. Geraldine McEwen, who died in 2015, played Mortiana. She was in The Love Letter and Henry V. Michael McShane played Friar Tuck. He was in Office Space and A Bug's Life. Brian Blessed played Lord Locksley. He was in Flash Gordon and Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Michael Wincott played Guy of Gisborne. He was in The Three Musketeers and The Crow. Nick Brimble played Little John. He was in Roger Corman's Frankenstein Unbound and A Knight's Tale. Sue Druitt played Fanny. She was in Doctor Who and Call the Midwife. Daniel Newman played Wolf. He was in Bram Stoker's Dracula and The Borrowers. Daniel Peacock played Bull. He was in The Jewel of the Nile and a TV series called The Beeps. Walter Sparrow, who died in 2000, played Duncan. I almost said Blinken there, but that's completely different. He was in Ever After and The Secret Gut. I can see. Nope, never mind. He was in Ever After and The Secret Garden. Harold Innocent died in 1993, played the Bishop. He was in Brazil and Henry V. And Pat Roach, who died in 2004, played the Celtic chieftain. He was in Willow and Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sean Connery is also in this movie, but did not mention him because he just has that little bit at the very end there. Nobleman Crusader Robin of Locksley breaks out of a Jerusalem prison with the help of his Moorish fellow prisoner Azeem and travels back home to England. Upon arrival, he discovers his dead father in the ruins of his family estate, killed by the vicious Sheriff of Nottingham. Robin and Azeem join forces with outlaws Little John and Will Scarlet to save the kingdom from the sheriff's villainy. Here is the trailer, and we will be back in just a second.
A time of war. tyrants. A time when the only way to uphold justice was to break the law. He gave the people the courage to fight. Stood for freedom became a legend. Kevin Costner, Morgan Freeman, Christian Slater, Alan Rickman, and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Prince of Thieves.
And then Robin Hood stands up and says, I am the greatest swordsman who ever lived. Because apparently that's the Willow music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I knew it was something. Who did Willow music?
That was James Horner.
James Horner. Yeah. Please disregard my like. I recognize that from somewhere, and I'm like,
And I didn't listen to the trailer until today, and I was playing the trailer. I was like, they just they just lifted all the music from Willow. Okay.
Yeah.
Which trailers do that all the time. I mean, trailers steal from other movies too.
But I'm telling you, man. Well, and I don't want to get ahead of myself or get out over my skis with the commentary, but that created a completely different picture of the movie in my head right now. Yeah. I mean, just like it's like very different. That was shocking.
Yeah.
And none of that music is not used in the film, correct?
No. At all.
Yeah. At all. And that's one of the things we've talked about trailers. You'll often hear songs, and sometimes it's lyrical songs too. And then you're like, that's a cool song. You're waiting in the movie and it's never in there. And you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Whatever works for the trailer. The trailer's job is to sell it. And that's really it. So if they can get you to go pay your 8, 12, whatever, $15 and then go to see in the theater, that's job. Succeeded. So
well, and it might just be the music's not even done yet by the time the trailer comes out.
Yeah, well, it is. It's not. It might not be finalized, and you're going with something that's a vibe, and it's the same sort of, to a certain degree, it's the same sort of setting, same sort of kind of tone, and Robin Hood. You think Willow and Outdoor, they're very similar, like kind of films, and I'm not saying by plot, I'm saying by setting and time and tone and everything. So it worked for that. So they probably figure this will work for that. And like you said, it might not have been finalized yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, so for this one, we start off with our typical question. One word or a short phrase. When you saw that this movie was coming up, how did it make you feel?
I'm so excited. This is an awesome movie. I love this movie. You asked for one word. I gave you 18. No, I didn't. I gave you like 8. I didn't count because I'm so distracted by the awesome.
My understanding, there would be no math.
I was so excited for this movie. I am excited to talk about this movie. If you don't like this movie, then, here's 30 pieces of silver to pay off the devil on your way to hell.
You were so excited about this movie that you were late coming to the podcast because you had to vacuum up a mess.
I had to vacuum up a mess.
Like, wow, I like this movie too, but I don't know if I like it that much.
That's right.
All right, Dennis, what about you? How does, deep in your bowels, how does this movie make you feel?
Right. Excuse me. It maybe a little not nostalgic, but just like any of these movies. I mean, that's what's going to happen with a lot of these. It's just time period where, I'm 21 and at the time, and it was a good film, and I watched it with my family and, my brothers, and so good times, good movie, kind of that type of feel. So it's just a good, in some ways a little bittersweet because, those are good days and my brothers aren't there anymore. So anytime we see it, but I remember watching this. So this was on I think it was VHS or DVD, maybe. Would DVD be out?
No, not yet.
So it's still VHS. So we saw this on VHS. We did not see it at the theater, as I recall. It was at home. And again, I know we saw it probably twice or three times that year because my dad liked it. So if we did see it in the theater, then we did follow it up with, obviously watching it at home a couple times. So
yeah. For me, I'm going to echo what you guys have said. Just excitement. Anytime. This is one of those movies where if I'm looking around and I'm like, because I've got my shelves of DVDs and Blu-rays right over here to my left, and if I look over there, I'm like, if I walk over, I'm like, hey, what movie could I put on that the whole family could watch, with the kids being a little bit older? I'm like, what could I put on that's always going to be fun? And that Robin Hood is going to be one of my go-to movies that I would typically pick out. It would be something like, oddly enough, by the same director, it'd be something like The Count of Monte Cristo. It would be Robin Hood. It would be The Rocketeer. It would be, some of these others that are in the rotation of favorites. So, when I knew this one was coming up, I'm like, okay, this one's going to be an easy one to talk about because I have a feeling that we all enjoy it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So, and this one's an interesting one because it's a different take, and especially for the time, it was a different take on the Robin Hood story. Sometimes we talk about how, especially when you get to like the 80s and the 90s, when you start to redo some of these stories that have been around for a while, it almost treats it like I don't want to say it's quite like Young Guns, where it was like a Western, but a rock star Western. But in some ways, this is kind of like a rock star version of Robin Hood. It was updated. It was in certain ways modernized. And just it was very different than your typical take. I mean, you had your other Robin Hood movies of the past. You had the Douglas Fairbanks in the 20s. You had Errol Flynn in the 30s. You had the Disney Robin Hood in the 70s. And pretty much all of those followed a similar vein of, you've got green tights, pointy shoes, pointy hat, and the bow and arrow thing. And
right.
your Robin Hood story is pretty much the classic, Robin and Marian steal from the rich to give to the poor, that right. kind of stuff. And then this one brought a few more elements to it than just that typical story, but also kind of played around with mixing in some of the different legends that had popped up over the last 800 years or so.
And not to disparage any of those, because I mean, like the Disney one is one of the best animated films. Like I love watching that. And, the Douglas Fairbanks and Errol Flynn versions that you referenced, also fantastic movies. I mean, it was just, it was a different style of movie making, a different style of acting. And I mean, you can't, I don't think it's, well, you can compare them. I shouldn't say you can't compare them, but I mean, they weren't trying to accomplish necessarily the same thing outside of telling the Robin Hood. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just, I want to throw that.
I think it falls into the category of like your Christmas carols. Some of those, I'm trying to think what else, but Christmas Carol, where it's a movie where the classics were made back then. Mm-hmm. They have a place in your heart or in your, memory that you really like or what, enjoy. But at the same time, you're like, what, I could use it. It could use an update. It doesn't mean that it cancels out or is better than the other ones. It's in addition to, it's telling the story again. These are one of those stories that are so good that they could be told multiple times, and change with the times and be updated and cross your fingers. Hopefully they do a good job. So I think it falls into that. So when you're hearing it, you're thinking, yeah, this is great to get a new update, a new modern version of this. Because we've seen that, mainly it was the Douglas Fairbanks version, which I think was a favorite of my dad's, and he was totally welcoming this one, with the new abilities and technologies and filming techniques and the way things have changed. It was like, you're looking forward to it. You're not going, oh, the other one wasn't good. It was just, hey, this could be even better nowadays. This could be a cool story to see in color or like, not color, but like in just a different format.
It's grittier.
Yeah.
That was
say, right off the bat from the beginning, you're starting in a prison in Jerusalem during the Crusades. And that's already right away. He's about to have his hand chopped off. And you know, that's not how the other Robin Hood movies started.
Yeah, it's definitely grittier. And I mean, I'm gonna say, like, when I saw this movie, this was right when I was like starting to head to the theaters by myself. You know, the movie theater was within range of my bicycle riding, and a buddy of mine, we'd head over and, you know, hit the theaters, you know. And so I remember seeing this in the theaters a couple times, you know, as much as my, you know, whatever job I was working in seventh or what was it, would have been eighth grade, whatever job I was working. And, you know, that I had some cash, but yeah, I remember seeing this in the theater, and that was like, whoa. And I mean, I had seen other movies in and around this time, but I think this was one of the first that was real, you know, kind of like where this is the portrayal of the Middle Ages. Everything up to this point had been that older look, which had fantastic sword fighting. I mean, you look at Errol Flynn and Douglas Fairbanks with the sword fight. I mean, you know, but it was like a cleaner look, and it was like, this seemed like, okay. I mean, the world is still pretty sanitized. Like you're not quite getting, you know, like leprosy is a joke. You know, you're not talking about the bubonic plague, and you're not, you know, all that kind of stuff. But still, I mean, you know, you see blood. Okay. Like people are getting knocked about, you know, people get bruised, you know, so it's got it's got a harder edge to it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Pat, you know me, I like my heroes gritty. And and I was especially happy to find out in one of the deleted scenes that you find out Robin's mother's name was Martha.
Exactly.
I thought that was really cool.
It was. It was Martha of Locksley.
Martha of Locksley. Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, this immediately. It's a, like you said, it's a very different take. In fact, I think they had some people that when they were doing the casting for this movie, one of the things I read or I heard from somewhere was they were doing the casting for the movie, and some people initially turned it down because they're like, I don't want to wear a bunch of tights in this movie. Like, I don't think I look good in tights. I don't want to be in this movie. And apparently when they got Kevin Costner for the movie, they brought him in to do like one of the initial kind of the costume evaluations, just to kind of see how he looks in the costume and everything. And apparently as a prank, they brought him one of the like bright green tight costume with tights, with the pointy shoes, with the hat with the feather in it. And they put him in that, and he's like, I thought we were going for more of like a realistic look, and they were messing around with him. They're like, no, this is gonna be your costume. This is the Robin Hood costume for the movie. And then everybody just burst out laughing because they were totally trying to prank him. But
and I'm just gonna say, I thought even when I was 13, I was like, wow, the costumes look cool. Like, I don't want to be like doing the Steve the Pirate thing, you know, from Dodgeball. But I mean, I was like, dude, the costumes look really like, I don't ever remember being struck by like costumes, you know, but it was like, dudes, they look cool, man. Yeah. They look really cool in this. So.
Yeah. Between the costuming, between the whole look and feel of everything, it's just a fun movie.
Yeah.
So in the movie, we do get away from Jerusalem. He does escape with Azeem, who does come back to England with him, because Azeem has some kind of Wookiee life debt that he has to abide by since Robin saved his life, and they do get back, but not before Robin's father is killed by the Sheriff of Nottingham, and one of the things I read was Brian Blessed, who played Robin's father, Lord Locksley. Apparently, when they did his death scene and everybody kind of rushed in to attack him, I guess he did get injured. They didn't go into detail, but they said on IMDb it said, ironically, Brian Blessed was almost killed filming his death scene.
Oh,
like, okay, well, that would have been terrible.
Right.
In the Jaws.
Yeah.
And what about and what a great voice that guy. God.
Yeah.
And King. I mean, I can rewind that and like listen to that 4 or 5 times in a row. That's just he's just got an awesome. It's all right, Duncan. You know, I mean, I can't. There's my impression. There you go, guys. There you go. But I mean, he just
there was your Sean Connery.
That
came out sounding a little bit like Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
And ironically, Sean Connery, they were going to try to get Sean Connery for that part, But
Yeah.
he's like, no, I've played too many fathers recently. I don't want to be a father, so you could bring me in at the end for King Richard or something.
Yeah.
But no, he's got a great voice. He was Boss Nass in Phantom Menace.
Was he?
So he's got that big booming voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
That would have been a fun line if they had included. I mean, obviously it was made years after this, but you know, if he's yelling out God and country, but then also be gone with him, kind of a thing. You know, yelling that at the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah. Funny.
Right. Yeah. So then they get back and he finds that the home that he left, that Robin left, is not quite what it was, and the corruption of the land has overtaken his home and Marian's home, and his father has been killed, and the servant was left blinded and kind of left to fend for himself there. And I think originally what I know of the Robin Hood story, which is not a lot, but what I know of the Robin Hood story is there is a bit of truth to some of that, where the Robin Hood legend grew up around, you know, that Nottingham in particular was a place where there was a lot of corruption, that possibly the Sheriff of Nottingham was also a corrupt official. And so, you know, there was some truth in that possibly. And yeah, I think a lot of those legends kind of grew up around what was going on at the time with the king, you know, being gone in the Crusades, and some of the officials kind of left to run things on their own. So you kind of get that sense at the beginning of the movie here where things are not quite the way Robin left them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things I always thought was kind of funny is when they do go to try to find Marian, he really hasn't been gone that long, right? Like, it was only like 5 or 6 years that they were gone off to the Crusades.
Yes.
Yeah. So how would he not know what Marian looked like? Like, they're already a little bit older, and it's only been 5 or 6 years. So that's one of the only things that's bothered me a little bit about that part of the movie is like, well, I mean, 5 or 6 years, I think you'd still know what she looked like.
Well, didn't he kind of, I don't know. I watched that a couple of times because he's just like, the years have been kind.
Yeah.
I mean, could there have been a little bit like he's trying to play or figure it out, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that was also a fun scene because a lot of times in some of the others, not all of them, because sometimes, you know, you get her fighting back too, but thought that was kind of a fun twist on it to have Marian be like the assassin that hops in and almost takes him out when they come to her house. And so I thought that part was kind of fun too, a little twist on that where, you know, she's like, I don't really need anybody to protect me. I think I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. He opens the door, knees him right in the sensitive area there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hello, Marian.
Right in the quiver.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the things I was reading about this is that we joked earlier about the Cary Elwes line about him not doing the British accent for this. And apparently, I think you were telling me before, weren't you, that Cary Elwes was originally offered this role of Robin Hood?
I think he was. I thought he was one of the guys that they offered it to.
Yeah. I think they offered it to him, and he didn't. He thought the plot was kind of blah.
Mm-hmm.
So he turned that down. And actually, a couple of them. I want to say Alan Rickman was also like, the writing of this is terrible. He's like, I don't think I want to do this. The writing is terrible. I think I read somewhere he turned it down a couple of times. And the only time, once they finally got him, was when they said, all right, look, if you don't like the script, you can ad-lib a bunch of your lines. Like, if you've got something you want to say, if you want to, you have full control over the character. You portray the character however you want to portray the character. And it was at that point that he was like, all right, I'll do it. And I did see a video interview with him on one of the old kind of behind-the-scenes videos for this movie. And they cut to him, and he says, I'm not playing a bad guy. I'm playing the Sheriff of Nottingham, and he's a man that has a checklist of things that he wants. And his checklist doesn't line up with Robin Hood's checklist, and they have some conflict. But I'm not playing a villain. He's like, all right, well, because sometimes you come across as a mustache-twirling villain, but, you know, that's cool, too.
Yes.
But
Interesting.
I mean, that's probably the most fun of this movie for me is the Sheriff of Nottingham character.
Well, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Anytime on screen, you are just drawn to him. Hating him.
That's probably why they kept appealing to him, because a lot of times, somebody turns you down, you don't keep going after them. But the fact that they're so willing, it means that they saw, that he's just perfect for that.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he had a couple of friends of his who were a comedian and a playwright who helped him come up with some of the lines. Like one of my favorite lines of his in particular, I think his friends were they were workshopping some stuff and they came up with it. It was the one where he walks out and he goes, "You, my room, 10:30 tonight. You, my room, 10:45, and bring a friend."
That's right. Wait. This man steals from me, forcing me to inflict taxes on the public, and hurt the public, and they love him for it.
Yeah.
No more bread for the hungry. No more alms for the poor. No more merciful beheadings.
Yeah. I got it for you right here.
Cancel the kitchen scraps for lepers and orphans. No more merciful beheadings. And call off Christmas.
Now sew and make the stitches small. Man, you know what I'm saying? That's like, Sir Alan Rickman, my word, is that a tour de force? Is this movie just a tour de force?
He's like a slightly more insane, goofy Hans Gruber.
Yeah, and I want to. Okay, so I'm on a rant from before we started recording. Anyways, I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes thing, and I know that a bunch of the critics this, that, and I saw a bunch of the critics kind of go after Alan Rickman. They say, well, he was so silly and he was so this, and it was kind of like, yeah, but
he's also the best part of the movie.
Yeah, and it's like he was silly. But that's all of a sudden it turns on a dime and you realize, no, this guy's just sinister. Yeah. Or maybe that's just I know what I want and no one's going to get in my way, because then he's stabbing Guy at Gisborne. And I mean, it was wow, oh, cousin, I can't let a deputy,
Yeah.
Jeez. Just how incredible.
Why a spoon, cousin? Why not an axe?
Because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, he is, as much as I do love the rest of the movie, he is probably my absolute favorite part of this movie, is just his, I mean, I could just watch him as the Sheriff of Nottingham for the entire thing.
Yeah.
They could do They could do a documentary on the Sheriff of Nottingham as long as he was playing the sheriff, and I would watch that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is just going to be the podcast. It'd be one of this, an hour of us quoting the Sheriff of Nottingham, just because he's just so good.
So some of the other fun stuff in this movie, this was, of course, this came out in 91. And this was right around the same time that I moved over to England. And it was, I'm trying to remember the name of the little kind of forest area where they filmed it. Because
that's next was where did they film this?
Yeah. There was kind of a little area. Well, I was going to look it up here. It's filming locations. Yeah, there was a forest kind of near where I lived, and my friends and I, once I started going to school there, we, on the weekends or whatever, there was a forest area where you could kind of ride your bikes to, and it had a whole bunch of clearings, and somebody had set up a tire swing on some of the trees that were there, and so there was kind of this areas you could kind of play and ride your bikes in a little bit and stuff like that, and so I remember going over there, and I remember that they had found, I don't remember if I ever found any, But I think they had found a couple of different times some netting from the movie. They had found some arrowheads from the movie, some other props that had just kind of been left behind over there. And sometimes watching the movie, I'll be like, that looks really familiar. Like that particular scene, that kind of clearing in the woods, that looks kind of familiar. That might have been that same area where we used to go kind of ride our bikes and play when we were kids. But they filmed it right in, that was one of the areas that they used for the Sherwood Forest.
Got it.
So that was kind of fun. That was kind of fun knowing that they had, I want to say that area was called Burnham Beaches. Beaches,
okay.
Beaches as in the trees, not the, yeah. Here it was, Robin Hood's Sherwood Forest camp was built closer to the film studio at Shepperton, about 50 yards from a public footpath in Burnham Beaches off the A335 road north of Slough, Buckinghamshire. So we lived not too far away from there. So that was one of the spots where they filmed that. Some of the other stuff, some of the scene with the river and things like that, those were in different locations and different spots in England. I think that was more further north in England. And then they filmed some of the other scenes near Hadrian's Wall and places like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you know this back in the day when you first saw it, or no?
No, because when I first
I don't think we asked
saw
that
it,
question. Did we ask that question? Where and when?
No, didn't ask that. I want to say when we first saw it, did we see it before we moved or after we? Well, if it came out in June, I don't remember. I don't remember if we saw it when it first came out or not. I'm trying to remember when we moved there. You know what?
Yeah, you saw this back then, right? Pat?
I'm sorry, say that again?
You saw this back when it first came out, correct?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, I saw it when it first came out. I'm trying to remember if we saw it because we moved right around June or July over there. So it would have been, if we saw it in the States, it would have been right when it came out. But yeah, I remember loving this movie as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's so much plenty to love. It's funny. I remember it was like this is the first time I became aware of widescreen and pan and scan. Mm-hmm. Because when I got the video, I'm like, man, I remembered there was more of this movie. I remembered this scene because I had seen it so many times. I started to notice different things. Like I would watch it, like I'd go back and there was one time I'm sure I went and saw this, maybe even in the theaters, and I didn't even watch the characters. I just watched the setting. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I do pick on just a little bit the Kevin Costner not having a British accent in this movie. Like we've had some other movies where somebody was based on who they were and their nationality, they should have had an accent, but they did not have an accent. For
his half brother didn't have one either.
No, he didn't have his. F me, he cleared it.
Yeah.
No, he didn't have one either. And apparently, so I was reading this, that's not because Kevin Costner didn't want to do an English accent. Mm-hmm. That he wanted to. He had actually hired a dialect coach, but the director, Kevin Reynolds, thought that the accent was so bad, he told him to stop doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Like,
all right. He can't get through it,
Right. Yeah. Which, you know what? If it makes it too distracting to the point where you can't enjoy the movie because the guy just can't get an accent down, then I think that's a wise choice. Just ditch it and enjoy the movie.
Yeah, I mean, and I know I want to be careful because, like, I could understand the sensibilities of people living in England and, like, okay, you're doing an English folk hero. Why does why do they have American accent? I could get where that might.
I think it all comes down to, like any film, is you want people to be able to lose themselves in the story. Like John said, if that's going to distract you from losing yourself in the story, then, and a director senses that, or anybody senses that, then it's sometimes better to not try that.
Right. Well, and the funny thing was, that was something that people pointed out to me, and I didn't even notice when I first saw this, because I was so lost in their portrayals of those characters. And without the accent, I really liked what Kevin Costner brought to the part of Robin Hood. I really liked what Christian Slater brought to the character of I almost said Will Ferrell, Will Scarlet. And then it was, and then it was one of those things when they pointed out the accent situation. I was kind of like, oh yeah, now I'm going to notice it. But I mean,
God, if Will Ferrell that would be a different movie.
That would be a different movie. Well, yeah. And I'm just going to say, like, I mean, the one fight where they first meet Wolf, and he sneaks up, to find out what's going on. And he realizes Guy Gisborne is sitting there, and he's like, well, welcome home, kill him. And then he just reaches out and pulls out the crossbows, and he's basically got him covered. But that's a scene. I don't know why, but Kevin Costner brandishing some kind of a shooting type weapon, he always looks menacing. He always, in all his Westerns, in the Untouchables, it always looks menacing. And that was right away as a kid. It was like, whoa, it's on now, when he pulls out the crossbows. And I think he shoots the crossbow almost completely at the camera in one of those. And yeah, that's very exciting. So like I said, it was easy to get lost in there.
Yeah. Now, have you guys heard about the kind of the conflict over the finishing of the movie?
No.
I did not.
So apparently, and I've there's a lot out there, and I've only really had time to dig up a couple of little things here and there. But apparently what ended up happening was the movie itself ran way over. It might have been over budget, but it was definitely over time. And there were a couple of different things that caused some problems initially. Robin Wright was supposed to have been made Marian. And I believe right before filming, she found out she was pregnant. And so she had to drop out of the movie. And so Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio was then called in kind of at the last minute. And I was reading in this one thing that because they had to delay things, she was actually going to get married. And the filming got so delayed that her wedding license lapsed, and so she had to go get a new wedding license because she had dropped everything to go be in this movie. And it sounds like there's kind of an interesting divide between Kevin Costner and some of the other folks that are in the movie. It sounds a bit like there was something that I read on IMDb in a couple of different places where they actually locked the original film editor out of the editing lab. And
I had heard this.
Kevin Costner went in there because he was one of the producers. He went in there with a couple of other people, and they edited the movie themselves. And the director, Kevin Reynolds, was not happy with the final edit. Alan Rickman wasn't happy because Kevin Costner felt Alan Rickman was upstaging him. So he cut out some of his scenes so that there was less of him in the movie. And I guess one of the other comments from an interview, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio said, "It felt like different films, different attitudes, and I'd much rather have been in Alan Rickman's film. I wanted to do what he was doing." And so it sounds like there was a lot of conflict kind of once the movie was over. Like once they had finished filming and it was time to edit everything together, it kind of sounds like there was a lot of tension, shall we say?
Was it ego?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or does it? How do we know? Like we weren't even in the room, but does it sound like that? Yeah, that's.
I mean, it could be ego, and it could be also. I mean, Kevin Costner is, I think, an excellent director as well, and excellent. Does a lot of stuff himself very well, and produces it. Like you have sometimes more stake in the game, so you control maybe more than ego. Not that I'm saying that it's not ego. I'm saying that there could be some of that too.
I see. I mean, like I said, I mean, anything I say.
Some people are just actors. They just act, right? And I think if an actor went and did that, I would say that that's more ego, but because it's out of character for them. But if you're somebody who's got that Dances with Wolves sort of mentality, director, somebody who's going to plug through, like you got that drive, that could spill over and be more of a factor than maybe the ego, or they're combined. A little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, anything I would say at this point would be incredibly speculative based on, but it's like, I love the movie so much. Like, I don't want to hear about the whole, well, this guy was upstaging me, so I'm going to cut his scenes and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder what the comments mean. I would have rather have been in the one movie than the other, but not like in terms of from the director, like the one, she said it from the standpoint of the actors. Was it editing? Was it the different editors?
Like Rickman was wanting to do, or no? Was that based on the editing? Was that common? I thought, or wasn't it?
It sounded like Alan Rickman had his own, like he had his own way of doing things that didn't necessarily fit with. I think he was taking it more in a comedic route.
He was given that artistic license to do different lines, so he might have been trying, taking it in a different tone or a different place.
Right, and I think especially his tone with the character was to be, evil and crazy, but also, kind of have a little bit more comedy to it. Whereas, a lot of Kevin Costner's scenes, it's more, there's not a lot of comedy there. There are moments, but I think it's much more of maybe a traditional Robin Hood movie in his part, and maybe Alan Rickman wanted to give it a little bit of a different twist.
Kevin Costner's kind of the everyman. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I mean. When they introduce it as like he was a spoiled bully that burned my hair and prodigal son and all this kind of stuff, that seems very foreign because one, is that how Robin Hood's being painted? And two, you don't see any of that in how he's being played. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just like, so they drop you in and then basically through exposition tell you that he wasn't this like noble giving type person. This is kind of like a second look. And that's kind of, and I thought it was cool. And I thought he pulled it out. And a couple of times when he gets kind of silly, like hanging out in the tree and some of the looks, I think you kind of get a glimpse of that. Yeah. Okay. He's a little bit of a rascal. Doing a noble thing, but still, I think Kevin Costner brings that out well. But it's interesting because they don't share much on screen, right? He gets when they meet in the church, one, and the sword fight at the end, two. But everything else, they see each other a little bit across the court, the big rescue scene at the end, but not a ton. So in a way, it really almost is two separate movies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because they don't share many scenes, right? Do they?
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So I found an article too I think it was from Entertainment Weekly, and it's an article from 1991, not too long after the movie came out. And it sounds like here, at the end of this one paragraph, it says, most disruptive of all, a last-minute recutting to bolster his on-screen presence, Kevin Costner's, led to a nasty battle between Reynolds and the producers. Just weeks before the first big picture of his career was to hit theaters, Kevin Reynolds walked out on the project. And then he's quoted later on as saying, "You know how Hollywood is. You go along, you get along," is sort of the attitude. He said philosophically, sometimes you just reach a point where you say, I'm not going to go along anymore. I think I've compromised enough, so I've moved on to other things.
Yeah.
So it just sounds like there were creative differences once the movie was finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few too many cooks in the kitchen there.
Yeah. But for all that, the movie we get, it's a fun movie.
Yeah. Can we, all right. I don't want to take control. I don't want to take the reins here, but can we just maybe take,
are you locking me out of the podcast editing?
I'm not going to lock you out of the podcast, but okay. Can we maybe take, the next 6 hours to talk about Azeem?
Sure.
One of the coolest characters ever on a movie ever. Dang.
Yeah.
That was a cool, that was a cool character. That is a cool character. You know what I'm saying? That
I
was
love his,
awesome.
Well, and you talk about that, and that may be part of it too, is that the characters, all of the other characters are so much stronger than Robin Hood. Like, not to lay a whole bunch of criticism on Kevin Costner, but when you really look at the movie, the most memorable characters in this movie are Maid Marian, Azeem, and the Sheriff of Nottingham. That really, I mean, Robin Hood himself, he really doesn't, and I'm saying all this, but I still love the movie. Robin Hood himself really doesn't have a whole lot of personality. I mean, he does. He's got his code of ethics, and he's got his, he's trying to grow up from being the spoiled brat that Marian remembers and all that stuff. But I think in terms of characterization and how the characters are written, I think those other side characters are much stronger and more entertaining to watch than Robin Hood himself is.
Well, maybe he just kind of tied the room together. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I mean,
he's the rogue. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna say this. I'll go ahead and throw this out there, and then you guys tell me where I'm wrong. Anybody that's listening along, please feel free to send your opinions on a postcard attached to a PlayStation 5 to the 30-something podcast P.O. Box. But Robin Hood, and I remember saying this with some of the other movies we watched, I don't get a lot of, like, they're not trying to make this guy like a super, and anything I say is going to sound like a slight. And I'm not calling out Kevin Costner. I love the guy's movies. I love watching him. But Robin Hood is supposed to be a good guy, period. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a controversial past, but he overcame that and became better. He's making the people better. Yes, they question him. If it's fame you seek, Christian, I think you found it. What are you going to do about this? Okay, well, follow me. Okay, and hooray. Like, his character arc is pretty much like a straight line.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I don't want to call him a two-dimensional character, but that's what he is. He's a good guy. If he's got some flaws, well, he's overcoming those now. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say this, like, I saw a bunch of the negative stuff about saying, well, the movie doesn't hold up and all that. I'm not going to quite say the movie was ahead of its time, because I am not intelligent enough to say that or not, but you have a main character, like the main female lead. Okay, he does have to rescue her, but she's a strong character, not afraid to act. And you know what? Honestly, put a sword in her hand, and she probably could have taken out Nottingham and the witch before Kevin Costner made it through the door, right? So you have a little bit of a stronger female lead. Now, again, I'm a guy, so there might be some people looking from the perspective and say, no, if you want a strong female lead, you give me Cara Dune. Not, like, okay. And so could they be stronger? Maybe. But you got a strong female character. And then you have Azeem. Was he really a sidekick? Or was he just kind of going in parallel to, were they just friends? Was it more of were they sidekicks, or was it more like the buddy cop thing? I almost got a little bit more like the buddy cop thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
And part of that too, I don't mean to slight the character of Robin Hood or Kevin Costner or anything like that. I just think those other characters are more charismatic. I think they're more interesting to me than the Robin Hood character in this movie himself.
Yeah.
And that's more of a, wow, did they put in great performances, than it is a, wow, Kevin Costner really stunk up this movie, which is not the case at all. But
right,
I think when you look at it, and maybe that's not his fault, but you just had so many great. You had Morgan Freeman, Alan Rickman, and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Those were your quote unquote side characters, your supporting characters. But to me, they come out as being more interesting characters than Robin Hood himself.
Yeah.
It's like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I'm just drawn that way, so it's just the way he was written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he could only work with what he had. That's probably why the editing then was to try and give himself something more, because he even sensed that maybe the character was almost a little two-dimensional.
Yeah. But it worked. Like I wouldn't want, yeah. I liked Azeem though. Azeem was cool.
Yeah. Well, and some of those funny scenes where he pulls out the, he pulls out like the telescope.
Yeah.
And that was always one of my favorite scenes. He pulls it out and he's never seen this thing before. So he's like trying to get his sword, and because he thinks they're right there. And
yeah.
But I like some of his other lines too. It's like, what should I do? Get up, move faster.
Yeah. And then his
Faster,
his reactions when he wins, he's just like, see, you could do it. Then he loses the next round. He's like, dude, I'm sorry. When he has the black powder, that was cool. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, man, every time I watch that, when he lights that first thing up and then it blows up, it goes kablamo. And the Sheriff of Nottingham jumps back and it's just like, man, could you imagine, like, holy buckets. There's like, there's like straight up legit explosions going off in your courtyard there. And you're just like, what is going on? Yeah. I like the character. He was educated. He was wise. He had faith. He was an incredible warrior. He had a great sense of humor. I mean, he was awesome. And I mean, just use of a scimitar in a movie, you get the Oscar for life on that one. When I saw that as a kid, I was like, wow, that sword is cool. That is awesome. Yeah, that was. And they even threw the scene in where the one guy draws on him and he turns around, he's like, ah! Yeah. He jumps off. The guy like jumps away.
And so many other characters are just so much fun. The Friar Tuck character is hilarious in this.
Yeah.
Guy of Gisborne is a great villain.
Mm-hmm.
And they've all got good villain voices too. It's very gravelly and very.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I never. Oh no. Okay, so I know. Is it the English pronunciation that it's Guy of Gisborne? Because do they say Guy or does he say Guy? And is that incorrect? Or is the French the Guy? Like, am I saying that incorrect? Should it be Guy of Gisborne?
Well, it's because it would be a French name if it was Guy.
Okay.
And the French pronunciation would be Guy.
Guy, yeah. Right.
But now you're making me think in the movie, how do they say it?
See, and because I know that there was a famous engineer worked for the French Tech 3 MotoGP team. I'm talking about you, Guy Coulon. Shout out for MotoGP. Guy was awesome. Fantastic engineer. Anyways, he was French and it was Guy Coulon. Yeah, so bottom line is, whenever the guy from Gisborne, the dude from Gisborne, when he is talking to Robin Hood and he says, he was poaching deer on the sheriff's lands, wrong. And he keeps trying to tell Robin Hood to move along. I never noticed his reactions before, which is awesome because when Robin Hood's just like, I'm sorry, well, what manner of creature? And he looks back and he's just like, are you talking to me again? And then he says, will you move along the sheriff's lands? And he goes, wrong. These lands are my land. And then when he says wrong, the guy gives, or whoever the actor is, he gets this look like, what is your malfunction? Why are you like, his reaction is priceless. And I rewound it again because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's really, he's like totally like, who are you? You are, but just watch him. Watch him. And he's just like, I told you to move along. What are you not getting? Walk away.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
The music for this one. the very, very famous, which I was kind of convinced until I was watching the behind the scenes thing. I was kind of convinced that the Bryan Adams song came first.
Oh, yeah?
And that's why that music kept getting used throughout the movie. You've got I'm trying to remember if this is the original theme or if this has the.
Oh man, I'm about to unleash on this theme, so I'm. Oh, I love it.
It's just a great piece of music.
Oh my gosh. And honestly, there it is. Yeah, keep playing it. I'm going to shut up. Keep playing it. Keep playing it.
I feel like I have to stop the music just because I want Dennis to stop dancing.
Oh man, I'm
Dennis
just
dancing?
It was gyrating or something. I don't know.
and seriously, like the whole movie is in that theme.
Yeah.
That whole movie is in the theme. And it starts out, I mean, you get anything, it's got that triple meter, that so that immediately gets you going, right? And then the horns come in and they've got that real open interval. To me, that's like that you can see England. You can see Sherwood Forest and people riding on horseback. Like that to me is like Knights of the Round Table, medieval times, sword fight, you know what I'm saying? In a theme. Like you just put that sound there, like certain sounds identify certain, and then you get the main theme that comes in, and the way that main theme builds up, and suddenly it's just all the brass instruments just assaulting you with just adventure. And then it kind of comes down a little bit, and it's like, and then you get a little bit more of this quiet kind of like hopeful, like, okay, there's going to be a struggle, and then it explodes again, and then they even paint the bad guys in there with the bass line, so they even like represent, okay, here comes the Sheriff of Nottingham. Like it's all wrapped up in that theme. And I mean, that theme sticks with you. That's like fantastic writing. Like you put the Batman 89 theme on, you know what you're talking about. You hear the Star Wars theme, you know it, like you hear this and it's got all the pieces of the movie in there.
Yeah.
And I'm biased. I'm a trumpet player. So you just give me all that brass and it's like, it's solid. But I mean, just those open chords on the horn, the French horns right at the beginning. And even the way that melody goes, I think it even comes in it comes in a little higher. Bum, 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 and then it's up a step. And when they assault when the Celts show up and assault the forest, they put that theme in exactly. So like the first couple times, how the merry men, they all learned how to shoot bows and arrows, and that they shoot the first volley of arrows, and that takes care of some people. And then the next scene, you've got them all lined up on the bridge, like every extra is sitting there with a bow and arrow, and the theme goes up to that next step. So it's like, yes, they're building, they're doing it, they're triumphing, Oh man,
is James Horner still alive?
Well, this wasn't James Horner.
It wasn't? Oh, I thought it was. Okay.
No, this is Michael Kamen.
Oh, okay.
And actually, Michael Kamen and James Horner both are not still alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael Kamen died in 2003. And
do you have a list of a couple other scores he's done?
Michael Kamen? He did. He did the first X-Men movie, which I love that score.
Okay.
I love the score of that movie. He did a lot of stuff. Like he did the score for Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, maybe that's
in
that name.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's done a lot of stuff. I'll pull up his IMDb real quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would know a lot of his movies. He did the 1993 Three Musketeers movie, the one with Kiefer Sutherland, all those guys in it. Here, let's go back.
I'm just curious to see if there's a versatility to him, or like some.
Oh yeah.
Like when you hear a John Williams, you can go, I bet that's John Williams. There's certain, and there's a lot of different composers out there who have a signature sort of flair to them, and you can kind of tell.
No, so I feel like I feel like I could pick out a James Horner or a John Williams, or I feel like I could pick them out. Michael Kamen, I have a much harder time picking him out.
That's what I'm saying. So I think it's a more variety, or there's not really a signature sound necessarily.
Yeah, he did. Early on, some of his earliest ones we would have done for the podcast. He did the music for Brazil. He did Highlander. He did Lethal Weapon. He did Adventures in Babysitting, Die Hard, Roadhouse. License to Kill, Lethal Weapon 2, Die Hard 2. He did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. He did Lethal Weapon 3, Last Action Hero, Three Musketeers, Don Juan DeMarco, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Mr. Holland's Opus. Event Horizon, What Dreams May Come, The Iron Giant, X-Men, Band of Brothers. He did 10 episodes of Band of Brothers. Let's see what else. Open Range, the other Kevin Costner movie.
Yeah.
And that was kind of around the time. Open Range was one of the last things he worked on. He did a few other things, but not to the same level as the other ones.
Well, Band of Brothers and Open Range, all just great stuff. I mean, X-Men. Well,
he did a theme to Band of Brothers, or did he just?
Well, there's only 10 episodes of. I mean, it was a miniseries.
I know, but I think the opening theme, like, isn't it the same theme? I thought it was all the time.
It is. No, I know. It was funny. I was thinking the same thing when I saw Band of Brothers. That opening theme is just amazing.
Yeah. It's I think it was all the music. He did all the music for Band of. I forgot it was only 10 episodes. So if that's the case, then he did all the music.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for writing this, and thank you to everybody in the film that was responsible for, giving him that space to write those themes. And if they, whatever, just because, I mean, this is a blockbuster soundtrack. And what happened? This became the theme for Morgan Creek Productions.
Right. Yeah.
That lick became the
that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing too. When that theme, it keeps building up. And like I said, like if anyone is listening, please talk to Michael or David W. Collins at the Soundtrack Show. Please break down this soundtrack for us, please.
Oh, that would be amazing.
But I mean, like the story, he always, and that's another great show that you should all check out, please. The Soundtrack Show. And John, I know he does the Star Wars Oxygen one, but he talks about the musical storytelling, and listen to this theme in its entirety. Listen to this theme in its entirety. It's got every bit of the movie. Everything you need to know is there and supported with excellent thematic material in the music. And like it builds up and then comes down. And then there's the struggle, and then it builds up again, and there's triumph and capital, and then you got the bass line that's going to be like the bad guys coming in, and then there's another explosion of all the brass instruments in the orchestra playing, and then it builds up. It's like this cascading thing at the end that just sounds like this regal fanfare. We got the victory. And what happens in the movie, Sean Connery pops out at the end, and it's like, oh my God, he's King Richard. Like, how cool is this? Well, and the music is telling you this is awesome stuff, I mean, my gosh. And that's like the first scene of the first scene of the movie. You got that cool like needlepoint, that has that medieval kind of, I don't know what that's called, needlepoint or sewing, whatever, look to it, and you just get the yeah. Can't say enough good things about the music. It is so good.
Well, and so, I mean, as a kid, I didn't really think of it this way, but as an adult, when I watch some of the scenes and it brings in the kind of the love theme, which is also the music from Everything I Do for You. As I got older and watched this movie, like middle school, high school, I think that some of those scenes, I almost want to say I made fun of them a little bit in my head. Because I was like, it's almost like that line. I always play that little clip from Family Guy. Like whenever somebody mentions the title of a movie in the movie, it's like, they did it again. As I got older, when the love theme would come up in some of the different, more emotional scenes in the movie, and I was like, look at that product placement for Bryan Adams' song. What I didn't realize is the music came first, and then Bryan Adams took the music and turned it into the song. I think as like a middle school, high school kid, I was like, oh, look at that. There's like the Hollywood crossover of, hey, let's make money, putting this song in the movie. And then as I read more into it just over the last few years or so, it's like, no. That was actually the love theme in the movie. And then what I had read was, I don't know if Michael Kamen was in the same studio or near the same studio as one that Bryan Adams was working in, and they were able to listen to the music, and he was kind of like, I love that music. I think I can make a song out of that. And he and Mutt Lange, who I know is, kind of a producer for a lot of, people in the music industry, I think I read they sat down and they wrote the lyrics out in about 45 minutes. And from there they were ready to go, and they recorded it a few months later. And I think they recorded it in March of the year that the movie came out. So it obviously came out around the same time, but yeah, I one of the scenes in particular where it really kind of that love theme, which anybody who's seen this movie or heard that song, they're going to recognize this right away. And I think that's, as a younger person, because she even says the line, but I think that's where the movie came first, and he ultimately got the title of the song from that line when Robin Hood says something to the effect that, do this, do this for your king, or something like that. And she says, no, I'll do it for you. And then the music swells. And so, as a cynical kid who thought that the Hollywood money-making music industry stuff was taking advantage of a movie, I thought that was kind of a funny scene. Well, now that I watch it, I'm like, okay, let me just ignore, I like Bryan Adams. I really like his music. Let me ignore that and just watch this as a love theme from a movie. That's a great scene, and that's a great love theme. Yeah. And so I think I have, let me see if I've got it here.
And 2.
Yes, 2. You're King Richard's cousin. You can get word to him of Nottingham's plan. He would believe you.
If the sheriff found out, I could lose all that I have.
It's true. But will you do it for your king?
No. I'll do it for you.
Fancies you, my lady.
So you get
it's a beautiful theme.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was real in vogue with those movies right around then. There was always like a hit song that came out, but I don't think a lot of them, it's kind of petered out. I don't think they do it anymore, but it was also rare. You could be my, okay, well, hang on a second. Terminator 2 spoilers.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry. But You Could Be Mine was in there, and then they had...
come back in about 3 or 4 weeks when we'll be doing Terminator 2.
Yeah. What was in Young Guns?
Young Guns was Blaze of Glory.
Blaze of Glory, okay. But this one, they actually wrote it into the fabric of the score, which is really cool when you can get
because
the music.
It was the score. It was the score first, and then Bryan Adams overheard the score, from what I understand, and then he was like, God, I love that music. Let me turn it into a song.
And that would be really cool if that happened more. I'm trying to think if in Titanic, they did the same thing with Celine Dion and James Horner. Which because the theme, the melody for My Heart Will Go On is in the score. You know what I'm saying? You can hear it.
Right.
And it's used, it's used throughout. And that, I can't think of any other movies where they combine. Now, of course, everyone's going to have a different opinion of, oh, well, I like that music or I don't like that music. But like I said, I like James Horner. I really like the Titanic score. And I know that they put a pop tune on top of some of the thematic material from Titanic, but.
Yeah, I was just looking it up real quick. In Titanic, same thing. James Horner wrote that music first.
Yeah.
And then he they really, James Horner wanted it. He wanted to have a version of that music that had vocals to it that could play during the end credits. So he hired, I guess James Horner hired a lyricist to come up with the lyrics. But James Cameron, the director, is like, no, I don't want that in my movie. So I guess they kind of did a little bit of this backdoor thing where ultimately they ended up having Celine Dion record it.
Yeah. Well, it's a win-win. It gets, listen to all but I can't think of many other movies that do it. Bill Murray obviously did the Star Wars, that whole thing. But
but yeah, a lot of the movies, especially as you get into the 90s, there's a lot of movies. I was telling the kids about this the other day. I was putting some music on in the car, and I think I put on Seal. and Kiss from a Rose came on. And of course, we're listening to Kiss from a Rose, and, you know, the kids are like, what is this? And I was like, well, this is the greatest love song from Batman Forever. They're like, this was in a Batman movie? Yes, kids. The year was 1990 something. And we inserted pop songs into movies that they probably didn't fit very well with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dennis, was that you? That sounded like you were turning off the tractor beam in the Death Star.
I was just going to say.
I would have thought Pat could identify the vehicle. There's some sort of
I was.
motorcycle came through the road. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, through the thing, it just sounded like John said, the Death Star's tractor beam was being deactivated.
Somebody's speeding down Greenleaf here.
Okay.
Well, it's good to know someone out there is having fun.
So drive fast and take risks.
Wow. I'm like I said, and that I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was another. It's just an awesome theme.
Do we have anything? I've got a couple of questions left before we go into our 3 questions. Do we have anything else you guys want to say about the movie itself?
Azeem's really awesome.
Yeah.
That guy's really awesome.
No, just if you haven't seen it, see it.
Yeah.
You know what was also funny about this one? We didn't really talk about this much. This goes for our next 2 movies, though, is that this was so popular back in 1991 that I believe round about the same time they had Robin Hood and Hook action figures that you could buy. Because I remember trying to get some of these. I don't know that I ever did, but they had the Robin Hood. If you Google it, there's Robin Hood action figures. There was an Azeem action figure. They were from Kenner, so they were kind of like, it was almost like the same mold as some of the old Star Wars toys.
Cool.
About the same size too, but they had Robin Hood, that I don't think looked anything. He looked more like Superman than Kevin Costner. And then you had the Sheriff of Nottingham and all those other characters. The one that I thought was funny, and I even recognized this as a kid, because I had 2 of them, is the Robin Hood Sherwood Forest playset was the Ewok Village. It was the exact same toy.
That's hilarious.
The Ewok Village was just like 3 tree trunks that held up like a little platform that had like a little, had some railings and some ladders and some ropes and things like that. All they did was they just repurposed the Ewok Village for the Sherwood Forest playset.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, we were actually, my wife and I got away for a couple of days last week, and we went up to Wisconsin and happened to spot this one place. So if anybody wants to, and I think that's the tagline for their store, if anybody wants to relive your childhood and go to a place that is part toy museum, part toy store, because it's actually a toy store, but there's so much stuff in there. There is a place in, I want to say it was in Sheboygan, and it's called Freak Toys. Freak Toys, all one word, and toys with a Z. And this place was, if I had unlimited money, I would have bought everything in the whole place. But as I was looking through, I kept seeing a whole bunch of stuff that I had as a kid, and the prices were actually really reasonable. Sometimes you go to these places and everything's overpriced. Really reasonable. And I happened to pass by this one section, and they had Robin Hood toys and they had Hook toys.
Oh.
And I remember as a kid, I was like, oh man, I always wanted the Rufio action figure.
Rufio.
So that'll be next week. We can do that one next week. But it was fun to see some of these on the shelves after, remembering that as a kid I had wanted these.
So cool. So cool. I am on freaktoys.com.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So if you're ever up that direction, you got to stop by there.
Yeah.
It was fun. Like, it was a lot of fun. We didn't have the kids with us. We just kind of went in and looked around a little bit. And actually I got, I did pick up something while I was there. They had one of the original, he was like a little bendable figure of the Rocketeer from when the movie had come out. They had that, and I've seen it before, but it's usually a little bit more, and it was not very expensive at all. So I did come away with that from my trip, but there were a lot of other things I could have sunk some money into.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So my final questions related to the movie here before we get into our 3 questions are, and I think I know my answer to this. If this movie was being released in theaters today, what would be the reason you'd go see it?
Cast.
Okay.
Because it's awesome.
The knowledge of the story beforehand, but the cast. I mean, an interesting cast, and I'd like to see it updated.
Okay.
So, if it's a bunch of people I didn't know, I don't know. Sometimes that's a good thing, and they do it really well, and other times it's, it might make you a little more skeptical.
Yeah.
Now let me ask: are you saying re-release? Like, hey, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is coming to a theater, or they're if they do another Robin Hood?
Let's say, yeah. So let's say this movie, instead of being released in 1991, let's say this exact movie posters up on the theater walls, the same trailer, the same everybody. It didn't come out in 91. It's coming out in 2021. What would draw you to go see this movie?
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
No, Kevin. Like I said, the whole cast. I just like her. Rickman.
Yeah, I think the action in the cast. That's what would draw me. Alan Rickman is a villain. I'm gonna see just about anything where Alan Rickman's a villain.
Would the Willow music in the trailer do it for you? The same trailer?
That would have done it for me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was good music.
Yeah.
Robin Hood, you are great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I like the swords and the horseback riding and the adventure. That stuff like appeals to me. So, yeah.
All right, and then final question. I think I know the answer to this. I know the answer for me because I'm looking at my DVD copy right now. Would you buy this movie? So sometimes we talk about, does this movie hold up? Or, there's a certain level to, I like this movie. I'd watch it whenever it comes on. Or I would actually sink money into buying the steel case, Blu-ray, 4K, DVD, whatever edition so that I can own this thing forever. Would you or do you own this movie on some kind of physical media?
No and no.
Okay. So you like it, but not that much.
I like it, and I like it a lot. It's got to be, especially nowadays, it's got to be rare that I'm buying it. But back then, I could see buying it, but like now, because everything is streaming and everything you can get on, it's like right now, I don't need the extra clutter, so it's got to be like something that's going into that sentimental box that I'll drag with me everywhere. And this wouldn't fall into that category.
Okay.
So
but it's not like, there's other ones that would be pushing that out of the way.
So taking out the physical media thing. I mean, let's say, would you purchase it on Amazon Prime so it's in your all-time online digital copy that you could watch? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I figure I could rent it, when I want to see it. I don't know if it's a movie that falls under the category of me watching it multiple times, but if it's on, I'll watch it. And if I was showing it if I was with somebody who had not seen it, I would pay for the rental or maybe purchase it then, just to say I have more time to watch it. But it's not like a diehard, not like a diehard movie that I need to get. That's just my honest opinion. It's just, that doesn't take anything away from the movie, in my opinion. It just, it's like concerts, there's a lot of artists I like, but there's only so many artists I'm going to fork over money to go see them in concert.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even necessarily about the money. Sometimes it's about, even if it was free, there's always sometimes people, I like them, but I'm not really going to go see that concert. Like, I don't have to, I think it probably falls into there. But like,
gotcha.
On the light of the movie, it's more about my personality probably, and how I don't really, my dad was a DVD collector, like tons of them, and then he ended up just kind of, they were just all there, wasn't watching, they were sitting there. My uncle was the same way. He's got 50 million CD or DVDs, and I don't know when they watch them. They just keep getting new ones,
Yeah.
I've been a lot more selective lately about which ones I purchase on DVD or Blu-ray, and so I haven't bought as many as I used to. But this one's a holdover from, well, because it's a DVD. If I had bought it today, I probably would have bought either the Blu-ray or the 4K version of it. But this was during the time when I was just buying every movie that I've ever liked, just so I'd make sure I had a copy before things were really streaming everywhere.
Right.
And even now, I mean, it's really only streaming, unless I want to pay for it, it's only streaming on HBO Max, I think. So, there are times where I've kind of run into situations like that, where it's like, is it a movie? Is it one of my favorite movies of all time? No, it wouldn't be on like my top 10 list of movies. But is it one that I want to watch regularly and I don't necessarily want to pay for HBO Max just so I can see Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? All right, if I find, a DVD copy of it or a fairly inexpensive Blu-ray or whatever copy of it, I'm going to get it. So, yes, this one was already sitting, this one was nestled snugly in between the 1953 movie The Robe and my Blu-ray copy of The Rocketeer. So
there it is.
So I set those two together so that The Rocketeer is on equal footing as Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, just so we don't have to be bitter about how Robin Hood and the Terminator did The Rocketeer in. That's okay. That's another story.
So that's where we kind of go on this question. It's like, is this question like, are we literally asking, would you buy this or is this question a proxy for how much do you like this movie? Top 10, I'm definitely buying it. Yeah. Nah, I mean, I'll watch it once and that's that. I'll rent it if someone hasn't seen it, or that middle ground that's like, if people want to say, hey, judge me by my movies that I watch, do I count this one in there or not? You know what I'm saying? So, because it's two different discussions. The discussion of do you buy it anymore? Like there's all sorts of ramifications. Are we trying to, get rid of clutter in your life? Are you trying to convert to a Blu-ray? Do you, and all this? Yes, I'm still out there. I'm still out there. I'm still on a DVD player that's 19 years old. Yes, so I'm still converting to Blu-ray. Maybe. I still haven't decided yet.
But you're going to get a PlayStation 5, and then you can...
And invite, yes. And there was a whole discussion on that tonight. So, but that's a different story for a different podcast. But
was that related to the mess you had to vacuum up?
No, that was not related to that. That was, yeah. That had to do with Sushi and the Avengers, but that's a completely different story.
Well, that sounds like a fun evening.
Yeah.
That's like two of my favorite things, Sushi and the Avengers.
I know. A great shawarma place.
Yeah. So shawarma after.
So yeah, it's an interesting question, because it's a deeper question than,
Yes, my response to all of your follow-up questions is yes.
Yeah. So I own this movie on VHS.
Oh, very nice.
There you go. So I got this one. When I had like no money as a college student,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I dug it, man.
Nice.
Dug it.
All right. Well, I think it is now time for 3 questions. After our 3 questions, I've also got Jason Colvin from the Surely Can't Be Serious podcast and Podcast Full of Kryptonite did call in with a voicemail. So after the 3 questions, we'll play the voicemail and go from there. But it's time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, question number 1. Favorite Bryan Adams song? Do you have a favorite Bryan Adams song? I know if my wife can hear me right now, I feel like I'm going to get a text just about any second. She is not as much a Bryan Adams fan, and when I do play him, I usually get the comment that his name is not Bryan Adams, it's Mr. Scratchy Voice.
Oh, she's not a fan of the scratchy voice.
Not as much, yeah. So, do you have a favorite Bryan Adams song?
Summer of '69 is really good.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then I think the ballad one, Heaven.
That's a good one.
Now I categorize them as two categories: his songs that are his rock songs that are his albums, and then I would go with movie because he's done some the Spirit soundtrack for the if your kids haven't seen the animated film Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, it's really really good.
Yeah, it's outstanding. You're talking the one. You're talking the one from back like 2000.
Yes.
Yes.
He does the whole soundtrack for that, and it is excellent. I think it's him and might be James. I'm not sure if it is James Horner. Who does the sound? You look that up, John. Who does?
It is Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer, yes, yeah. Hans Zimmer. Him and Brian. Yeah, they do the soundtrack, and it was. I played that. My kids have loved that. Like that. That is an awesome soundtrack.
Agreed.
Like that's another one where you talk about it going with the. I think I was trying to think of what was one that goes with it. I don't know if the theme came first and he based the songs around that, but obviously all of them kind of go with the story. Mm-hmm. So he's writing the lyrics based on the story of the film, and I'm not sure if it was the theme from Hans Zimmer that came first and he kind of built things around, or if it was. That'd be interesting to see. But yeah, that is one of my favorites. Like I love that. That soundtrack's awesome.
Well, and Bryan Adams did have a stretch of songs right around this kind of early 90s time where
Can't Stop This Thing We Started was a hit, a decent hit for him.
But he had a stretch of songs in the early 90s where they were tied, like you said, they were tied to a movie. So you had the Spirit movie, like you mentioned. You had Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman from Don Juan DeMarco. You had All for Love from the Three Musketeers movie. So you had a lot of Bryan Adams in a lot of early 90s movies, providing the lyrical version of some of the music that you might have heard in the movie.
Yeah. Dennis, totally agree with you on Spirit. Just phenomenal movie and music and the whole thing. So definitely hard agree.
Sound the Bugle. Oh man, great tunes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have not seen that one yet, so that would be a good one to watch with the kids.
You have not seen Spirit?
No.
Oh, you got to watch that movie. I'll pay for it.
It's from, it's from 2002.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of his later ones, because most of these others where he did something that was related to a movie, those are all kind of early to mid 90s.
Yeah. But like I think on a lot of those, it was that ending credits love ballad type of thing.
Yeah.
This is like him and Hans Zimmer literally like it's you're just hearing his songs throughout the whole film with lyrics and everything. There's like a lot of what do you call them, the like montages and where there's just there's a lot of that, and he's just it helps really helps with the story, I think, and carries the story along. So definitely got to see that. Your kids would still love that. Your daughter, she's the age, That's not like a little kid film either, in my opinion. And I loved watching that more than the kids probably do. And they loved watching it, so.
Yep.
Like, I want to see that one again. Like, now that we're even talking about it, here we go.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, some of the ones that you guys have already mentioned, I'd say Heaven is always the one that, if I'm playing a playlist of Bryan Adams stuff, a lot of times it's going to be Heaven will be in there. Summer of '69 will be in there. Please Forgive Me. That was always a good one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think his Waking Up the Neighbors album was probably one of my favorites.
Yeah.
That might be the only album of his I actually bought. The rest of them, I think I either recorded it off the radio or I probably picked it up on iTunes later on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Question number 2. Favorite use of a bow and arrow, or I'll also give you a crossbow in a movie or TV show.
Walking Dead, Daryl. Sorry.
I kind of figured you'd say that.
Cool.
Yep.
Oh, man. I might have to go Legolas in the Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
That's good too. Yeah,
that one's really good.
I kind of thought I was thinking ahead of time. I was like, what's Pat going to do? He's either going to do Legolas or maybe Hawkeye.
I was right on the tip with Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that movie's so cool.
I'm going to go Last of the Mohicans too.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah.
I love the scene with the bow and where he shoots the which, well, I mean, there's a few of them, but like it just the overall movie for that one is classic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've got great arrow scenes in, Braveheart and Gladiator and so forth.
Yeah, Braveheart. Those were kind of top of my list. Braveheart, Gladiator.
I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to.
No.
I just stole it. I'm rambling.
No, because then the other fun ones are like the Monster Squad. Because he's got the wooden stake arrows that he shoots at the brides of Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
You got Arnold's bow and arrow in Predator.
Mm-hmm.
You got Rambo.
There's
nobody's going to go with the bow and arrow chicken from Hot Shots Part 2.
Yes. Yeah. There's one more I'm thinking about, and I can't.
I think probably one of the most impactful archery scenes in a movie was probably Braveheart. Just that scene in particular, just how visually you get a sense of what that would have been like to be in a battle and just have these arrows come raining down.
Mm-hmm.
And your wooden shield that you probably made at home is not going to stop an arrow necessarily from coming through and landing in your leg or your side or whatever.
The good Lord tells me he can get me through this day, but
he's pretty sure
you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, he's got a special relationship. It's his island.
That's right.
All right.
I was going to go also, you got to throw in Hunger Games there too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm like, because my brain was like, I had to go to the list. I'm like, Hunger Games. So I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah. I always wonder if movies like this, like Robin Hood, because I feel like Hunger Games did it a little bit. I feel like when movies like this come out, you probably have a spike of kids that want to go learn archery.
Yeah. Well, Brave did that too for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Well, because you had, because I remember Pat, you probably remember this too. I remember Carol at work saying that when the TV show Glee came out, that you had a bunch more kids that were coming out for chorus that might not have ever come out for chorus before, but because of the TV show, they're like, oh, I want to be in chorus now. I want to do what they do on the show. So yeah. I always wonder like how much when you get a movie that's like heavy in archery or heavy in, some other skill, something that kids could do, whether as a sport or a hobby or whatever. I wonder if you get a spike I wonder if in 1991 you get a spike of kids that wanted to go out for archery.
Yeah. Yeah. You wonder how that all works. I can imagine. Yeah. Why not?
All right. And question number 3 has kind of become our totally random question, but it is a little bit related this time around. Because what goes best with Robin of Locksley? A bagel. So what is your favorite kind of bagel?
Cinnamon raisin, classic.
Okay.
Panera cinnamon raisin. There's also the cinnamon crunch, which is really good too. From there, they have like a cinnamon crunch one with a a little bit too sugary sometimes, but
okay.
Classic. And then I'll follow it up with the chocolate chip bagel from Panera.
Nice.
Oof.
Go-to is the cinnamon raisin.
Cinnamon raisin.
The smell of that sucker, man.
Mm-hmm.
Glue the balls with that at school. Kids would be like, "Oh, it smells so good." Like cinnamon raisin bagels.
When my sister in high school used to work at Panera and she'd come home at night from work, everyone would want to give her a hug. and just linger a little bit longer.
She's like, "What's up? Why is everybody?"
Why aren't you guys this nice to me on days that I don't work?
Yeah.
I'm either going to go with because we have an Einstein's Bagels not too far from the house. So every once in a while, the kids will request. They're like, "Hey, can we go to Einstein's for breakfast?" Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to go with my two favorites from there. One is the 6 cheese bagel. Always a fan of that one. And I'm also going with the pretzel bagel. That's a good one too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Tanya's a pretzel bagel person. There's a lot of people, a number of people I like that.
Yeah. Pat, what's your bagel poison of choice?
Yes.
All the bagels.
All the bagels. I've been thinking about it. I mean, I switch it up, but which, the everything you got the garlic one, you got the poppy seed, the onion bagel. Maybe not the everything. I love the everything, but do I get maybe the one where it has like the like the cooked garlic on the top?
Asiago. No.
That's
not as yeah.
There's another one that I can.
That or the poppy seed bagel. Love the poppy seed bagel.
What I love is that this is the question that probably has had the most discussion around it from the 3 questions.
Oh yeah. Now I'm hungry for bagels.
I was just picturing Pat ordering at a bagel store.
Well, yeah.
Did I walk in? I'm cinnamon raisin, or the other two maybe. Does Pat sit there and go, man, this menu?
Oh no, yeah.
That's when you order everything, right?
Yeah, I order the menu. Can I
Just
please have
order
it? I'll take a dozen bagels, please. Oh man.
All right. Well, that's our 3 questions. Before we wrap up this time, we do have a voicemail.
I just called to say I love you.
Ed Rooney's office. Ferris Bueller's online too.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want.
What am I doing? I'm talking to an empty telephone.
I don't understand.
Because there was a dead man on the other end of this line.
Maybe. I guess you should have called.
I did call earlier when using the phone.
Earlier, when was that?
Or later, when then I left a message.
A message? What number did you call?
2, 4, 9er, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I can't hear you. You're trailing off. And did I catch a 9er in there?
I catch a 9er in there?
Hey guys, this is 30-something movie podcast superfan Jason Colvin and co-host of the podcast Full of Kryptonite. Just calling in tonight to say I hope that you guys had a great show for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I'm really enjoying you guys working through 91. John, I think you're a little tough on Point Break, though. Man, that movie was so much fun. Big fan of that one. Looking forward to what you guys have for us here in the future. And just keep up the great work. Appreciate you guys. I enjoy listening, and I will continue to do so. So thanks so much. We'll talk to you later. By the way, since Jeff couldn't make it tonight, I suggest that you cut his heart out with a spoon because it'll hurt more, you twit. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I got to say, I feel like I have to keep defending myself when it comes to Point Break.
Yeah, it was a controversy.
I liked Point Break. I liked Point Break, but I was like, just because I want the bad guys to get punished. Like that's, man.
Is this what it feels like to be Pat sometimes with a Patreon?
Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think it'll ever hit levels like that.
Yeah, that's levels of all sorts of,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Now if Pat had said that he hated Point Break, we would have gotten like 10 more people on Patreon, but that's okay.
Yeah, we would have. But like, when is that going to happen?
It's
like, not even in the mirror universe would I hate, like,
No. There's a multiverse of infinite possibilities, and I'm not sure that's even one of them.
No, I'm always going to love that movie. Yeah, man. Thanks so much. And boy, I love the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. Those guys are fantastic. And
yeah, I love this. He's got a lot of good Facebook posts too. I don't know if John, you're friends with him much around there. And
yeah,
they always make me chuckle, and some pretty good, really good ones.
Yeah. They keep it lively on Facebook and Twitter. So I'm always.
Yep. So thank you. Thanks for that, Jason. Yeah. So I just like, I don't go on there a whole lot, but when I do, it's like, oh, good. I love seeing those.
Yeah.
Certain things you fly through, and I always stop and watch those. So
yeah.
Look at.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode for us. Again, you can always find us at 30podcast.com. That's 30 and the word podcast.com. We're at 30 podcast on most of the different social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. We have a voicemail line, but we've also got our voicemail line, if you want to call in, is 872-356-6843. I think that comes out to 872-35-MOVIE, if you want to do it that way. And then we've also got on our website, if you just go to 30podcast.com, there is a button on our website right there where you can leave a voicemail as well. So there's a couple different ways to do that. Don't forget to check out our sponsor and the rest of the shows in the Scene Stealers Podcast Network by heading over to scenestealersglobal.com. Our next episode's coming up, so let's see. Next week we've got Hook. We'll finish out our Across the Pond month of British movies or British adjacent movies. And then next month we've got Terminator 2. That is our, is it Terminator 2? Yeah, Terminator 2 is when we hit our 365th episode. So
oh, geez.
That is where you can listen to us every single day of the year and not repeat something. So if you're so inclined, feel free. We've also got Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. It's coming up after that. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country is coming up after that. Hence the word sabotage. Then Suburban Commando will be after that one. Our Patreon episode next month will be Stripes from 1981. And then we got, let's see, coming up after that, we've got Jungle Fever, White Fang, Dead Again, Frankie and Johnny, Beauty and the Beast, and our Patreon episode coming up that next month is then going to be My Dinner with Andre from 1981. So we got some good stuff coming up. If you want to join us over on Patreon, you get access to those two movies as well. We do the special episode each month. Trying to do another one for the Patreon feed there coming up soon. I don't know, Pat, you said you might want to jump on that if possible. We might do a kind of a special episode on the Razzies of 1991.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those, but
I got to tell you, I don't want to go too much into it because I don't want to give too much of anything away.
I know. I already watched that scene.
Which one?
The scene you're about to talk about.
I watched the entire movie of Cool as Ice.
I don't know if I can, but I
have a lot of regrets.
I watched the one scene. It's really going to challenge my opinion that, hey, man, put a motorcycle in the movie. It'll make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lot of regrets when it comes to having watched that movie. First and foremost of all is that I watched that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to check a couple of times that I hadn't accidentally jammed an ice pick into my brain, because I thought, like, it seems like my thoughts are all disjointed here, and I feel like I'm watching something was edited by a room full of monkeys, and
don't insult monkeys.
That would be kind of insulting to monkeys, yeah. So yeah, not good, not good. Now the other one that I have gotten a little bit of the way through is Nothing But Trouble.
Yeah.
And I had never seen that before. I've always seen the cover of
Is
that.
this Dan Aykroyd?
It's Dan Aykroyd's first directing gig.
Yes.
And he's also in it. John Candy is in it. Chevy Chase is in it. Demi Moore is in it. So yeah, it's been kind of fun so far. Like, I can see why it's not a great movie. But it's at least been kind of fun, having all those big name people in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
actually, we saw that at the theater, to be honest.
Oh, did you really?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it came out. My dad saw that cast. We loved John Candy. We went, and it was kind of like,
yeah,
not horrible, but nowhere near as good as we were expecting.
Yeah,
is what I vaguely remember. I don't even remember too much about it, but I remember it being a look forward movie that we went to see ultimately a bit let down, but at the same time, it wasn't horrible had we not had such high expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The cast makes you expect a lot more.
Right.
That you get, and I think that's how I would remember it. So I got to see that one, yeah. Again.
Yeah. So we may do, coming up soon for the Patreon feed, we may do a Razzies of 1981. So those are the movies that were nominated for the Golden Raspberry Award as the worst movies of the year for 1991. So we may do a special episode coming up for that one soon. So be on the lookout for that one. Otherwise, thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Dennis.
Yep.
Thank you, John.
Did we talk long enough that the entire room got painted?
It is basically done, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just finishing touches here, and then good to go. I can go eat now something.
Well, hey, even if the podcast ends up being a complete disaster, something was accomplished tonight.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for being here with us one more time. Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we will see you back here next week for Hook.
Robin, promise you won't go.
All right. I promise you won't go.
Thank you.